Michigan fan says, hey, how's it going? Pretty well. Just getting set up here in the depths of my friend's basement. I'm actually, it's a funny story. I'll tell you about it, but we got a dog party going on over here. Erick Rudder from Wolverine Digest is in here. Erick and I are tossing around the idea of doing a weekly audio podcast, so hopefully you guys will listen to that. Erick does a great job, like I've said, and maybe he can shed some light on the Nick Eubanks comment. I've been kind of out of the loop. I wasn't fully aware that there was maybe a potential issue, I guess, with Nick Eubanks, but the way that Erick all had responded to the question regarding Eubanks, when Erick found out that he was going to start Saturday against Minnesota, and he said that he traveled with the team. So just based on the tone of that conversation, I'm guessing that there might be a little bit more to it, and I don't know about it. Ordinarily, I would know these things. So Erick probably knows a little bit more about that than I do, or maybe one of you guys do out there. So gonna tweet that we're live. I don't know if this is a good time for everybody. I was gonna do it later. I think Erick and I might hop on and do something a little bit later as well. I'm gonna give it a second here. And actually next week I'll be doing a special live stream probably at some point from Washington, D.C. I'm actually going to Washington, D.C. with a friend. She's going back home, and so I'm going to go out to D.C. with her for a week, and she's going to fly me back. Such a lucky guy, right? And she rented a nice Tahoe for us to go out to D.C. in, and we're going to watch the Michigan State game together, and we'll have some stuff on Saturday tradition for that, and try to maybe do a quick live stream from somewhere cool in Washington, D.C. because I've never been. Well, actually, I take that back. When I was younger, I had driven through there, but I never really got to see much. So there's a graffiti hall of fame. If anybody, Erick can probably attest to this. I used to write graffiti hardcore. I was really into it, and not like gang stuff, but there's a graffiti hall of fame in Washington, D.C. that I can't wait to check out. So that's going to be really fun. So if you guys have any questions, so far looks like we have a few people watching it. Erick Rudder says spooky season, man. Here half fall, and the Michigan state line opened up at like 24 points. Brian R says, hey Adam, glad you're doing the live content again. By the way, Chris Evans got in the end zone. Yes, he did. Michigan fan said went in 8th grade. That was a blast. Yeah, I didn't go on my 8th grade DC trip. This was with my dad, and we went to my aunt lived in Frederick, Maryland. So if you can envision a triangle, it's like Frederick to the west, Baltimore to the east, and then south down to DC. So it's kind of a little triangle. We rode a train, saw Camden Yards where the Orioles played, and at that time Camden Yards was only about 4 or 5 years old. So Andy K says, "What's up, Adam?" And yeah, and Brian, I know I've been on the Chris Evans bandwagon saying he's a home run threat. I don't know, man. Maybe Hassan Haskins, or maybe they got a few. It looks like Blake Quorum, that first play of the game, that little dump off to Blake Quorum that showed his explosiveness. Michigan's got a lot of weapons in the backfield, and like I said, Hassan Haskins, that Charbonnet's 70-yard run. I want to say that's the first game of the Harbaugh era to ever have 260. We'll even go 50, 250 plus yard runs, 260 plus yard runs. I don't think that's ever happened at Michigan in the Jim Harbaugh era. So today, Harbaugh hopped on the Zoom. There was Aidan Hutchinson, there was Vincent Gray, there was Erick all as well. So you guys have any questions about that? We could talk about the Minnesota game, maybe preview a little bit about Michigan State, which looked like absolute trash Saturday. And as many of you know, I'm not a Michigan fan, so you'll find out you guys know. I think most. I never publicly really admitted it to many people, but I think most of you guys know. And it was really hard to watch that game against. It was Rutgers. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It was a shit show. This year might turn out to be a special year. Well, it's going to turn out with a 2-0 start, I'll tell you that, because there's no way that Michigan State is beating Michigan. No way. No way. Brian R. says, I give you credit. You've been backing Evans ever since I can remember watching your videos. Yeah, last video I told a story about it because I had an old teacher. I went to high school for a year in Broad Ripple in Indianapolis, and I had an old teacher, Mr. Akers, who encouraged me to be a sports writer. And we had connected on Facebook, and he was sending me these messages about Chris Evans went to Ben Davis, and Mr. Akers was a football coach too. He was history and social studies teacher, but he was also a football coach. And he was telling me, like, Chris Evans was in like 8th grade. He's like, man, there's this kid at Ben Davis. This was before Michigan even got on him. And he's like, this kid's like, going to be the next best high school player in the Indianapolis area. So I'd been kind of privy to Chris Evans for a couple years before we started hearing about him in regard to being recruited by Michigan. So glad to see him back. He's a real good guy, and they have a dangerous backfield. I like those success stories. It doesn't matter who you play for, what school or whatever. You come back from some circumstances. His were the academic issue. You're able to come back and play your final year, contribute, that sort of thing. It's a cool story. You'd like to see guys have success like that. It's Erick Rutter, 7 turnovers. I know, Erick, don't remind me. 2 interceptions, 5 fumbles lost, the most in a Michigan State. I just spit right there. The most in a Michigan State game since 1981. That was the year I was born. We're talking 39 years of history. 21-game losing streak snapped by Rutgers. I think it was a 21-game season opening win streak for the Spartans too. It was just ridiculous. Andy Case, what's your impression on Joe Milton? I will get to that in a second. Brian R. says, how do you feel about Michigan's offense? Potent. That's how I feel. Erick Rutter, and it's only one game. I'll get on to Milton. I thought Joe was good. I thought he was a little bit nervous in the beginning. I still think he was putting 100 miles per hour on the ball at times when he shouldn't have been. But as the game progressed, it looked like he was starting to get a little more touch. Aidan Hutchinson today was talking about how poised and confident that Milton was in the pocket, and I'd have to agree. I mean, it was what did he end up with? That stats right here. Milton was 15 for 22, 225 yards and a touchdown. So I mean, not blow you away stats, but those are good stats. I mean, Michigan had a good ground game too. So I mean, you rushed for 256 yards, you passed for 225 yards. It was a balanced game, and I thought the fact that no turnovers and no fumbles lost, no interception. He was only sacked once, and that was a coverage sack. So I really believe that he's got a good O-line in front of him. I know everybody was talking about this young stuff, and if you haven't been paying attention to Michigan football over the past 5 years, if you think offensive line is just going to regress and be a problem, if anything, the offensive line has shown an improvement. I mean, it hasn't always been there, but we've seen measurable improvement on the offensive line. I don't think it's ever been a huge liability during the Harbaugh era. So I'll get into, let's see what else here. So yes, I like Michigan's offense. I thought Joe Milton was good. He was better than I thought he was going to be on the road. To be honest with you, and I didn't post it publicly. I did pick Michigan to win this game 35-21. So not 49-24, 35-21. I know a lot of I think a lot of the beat writers, the main beat writers were all picking Minnesota to win this game. Um, Eric says, question for you, Adam. Michigan's defensive ends created pressure, but the secondary wasn't as proficient. Dax should be back soon. What did you think of the number 2 cornerback? I thought, who was that? Was that Faustin? All I know is that it was Sammy Faustin, wasn't it? 197 yards through the air. I'd have to look up. I don't have all the notes like I usually do as far as how many 20-yard pass plays and stuff like that. I'm still trying to get back into the swing of things, guys. The real question is Michigan covering 25.5. I don't know about that, but I actually I don't know. It's hard to say, right, because it's a rivalry game. I can see this though just getting out of hand. I really can. Especially, I mean, Michigan goes on the road to Minnesota. Minnesota's a good team. Minnesota would whoop up on Michigan State. Minnesota would beat 80% of the teams hands down, I think, in the Big Ten. So it's or at least 3/4. We'll go 3/4. Oh yeah, it was Jamon Green. Yep. Yeah, he did play a lot towards the end. His brother is the Jermaine. He's the one that transferred because it was Jamon and Jermaine. What is Dax's injury? They didn't say, but Harbaugh said that he should be available or he'll be fine. I believe were his exact words. Same thing with Quinn Nordin working through something. He was asked if he'll be available for practice, to which Harbaugh said yes. So I don't know if he was directly answering for the game, but the actual the question was, it was from Angelique. The actual question was, will he be available to practice? And I think she may have followed up with a game. So it sounds like Nordin could. We'll see. Yeah, Makari Page played a lot. 3 pass breakups for Green. Okay, Eric, I'll answer your question. I thought you did a great job. Thank you. Yeah, the biggest surprise, Indiana beating Penn State. That's kind of quite. I kind of thought that Penix's hand, ball was down and he pushed it into the pylon. But if they can't, conclusively reverse it, the call on the field has to stand. Just like that touchdown Minnesota scored, but who was it? It was the running back. He was short, and I thought that was obvious to me. But they spent like 10 minutes reviewing that play between Penn State and Indiana. So if you guys have any questions about what Harbaugh said or Aidan Hutchinson, again, Erick Rutter's here. Like I said, I think we're probably going to get a weekly podcast going. It's going to take me at least past this week. I thought I had the 2 deep down. I forgot about Green, but I have the 2 deep down. I have a pretty good understanding. It just this was something I wasn't like even studying during the off season, and I haven't really covered Michigan since 2018. I didn't at all in 2019. So playing catch up a little bit. Offensive line was a play, and Eric, I got to say this. Yes, a pleasant surprise, but was it something that you thought would be impossible? Because and I'm going to go back. I mean, yeah, you have Mayfield and Hayes about as close to a returning starter as possible. But I thought Andrew Stuber played really well. Andrew Bastardis played really well. Harbaugh raved about the offensive line. And this weekend is going to be who, obviously, it goes like that in football. But I think particularly with Michigan State, if Michigan controls trenches on both sides, this is going to be, easy peasy for them. So that's my column for tomorrow on SaturdayTradition.com. You can follow them at Tradition on Twitter. And that's the gist of it. It's got to be won in the trenches. And I think Michigan showed that ability on both sides of the ball. And, Kwity Paye had an excellent game. Aidan Hutchinson was drawing double teams left and right, and that was allowing Kwity to go in and get those couple of sacks. Carlo Kemp had a nice game. There's so many players that you could point to as, okay, this guy did X, Y, and Z, and this is what. It was a total team effort, really. And it's the more you watch sports and, the more that you cover and listen, it's a lot of the same storylines, but I mean, the game doesn't change, right, from year to year. Football is going to be football next year. It's going to be football again. The only thing that, maybe change this year are the circumstances, but the objective of it is always going to remain the same. And I think Michigan, kind of, there were a few hiccups. It wasn't a perfect game by any means, but at the same time, I think I was really impressed with Michigan's offensive line as well. Particularly those 2 4-yard touchdowns by Tom Haskins. That was just plowing the field. It's plowing the field. Erick Rudder says, a couple months ago, I had the offensive line as the number 1 concern, even above a new starting quarterback. After hearing Ed Warner and the other linemen talk, I bumped that down to number 3 concern. Well, and it's a valid concern because of experience, right? I mean, that's always going to be a valid concern. I mean, you had Hayes, he played 12 games last year. Mayfield, the only returning starter. You have a 5th-year senior in Andrew Vastardis, who, I know some people were kind of concerned about that, but I wrote a column about that saying, well, he's been going up against, Chase Winovich's and Brian Monet's and Rashawn Gary's, Quiddy Pays, everybody. He's been going up against all these guys for 5 years, and look at who's in the NFL. I mean, he's been waiting for this moment, and he was behind a pretty good offensive line too. But Vastardis was always, the past couple years, 2017, 2018, I remember Harbaugh mentioning Vastardis as he was right there. So, I mean, if he wasn't in the 2 deep, he was, 2.5, Angelica Campos says, hey, bro, finally caught the stream. Thanks for coming in, Angelica. Glad you made it. D. Brown says, are you an MSU fan or what? Just say it. Yes, D. Brown. Yep, sure am. Eric says, actually, I have to run and get some coffee right now. Good catching up with you, Adam. We'll jump on the podcast later. Yeah, everybody go follow Eric. Eric, drop your Twitter handle in here. Everybody go follow Eric. He does a really good job. And we're going to work on trying to do a weekly audio podcast or maybe some kind of video thing. Hemp Daily Post says, how about Ben Mason returning to fullback? Love to see him part of the offense again. Ben Mason, I guess, gave just one hell of a pregame speech. Jim Harbaugh didn't give the details exactly what he said, but basically he went up to Joe Milton and said, this is your game, and whatever Ben Mason said riled them up. And Harbaugh was not mad about that block. And I wouldn't either as a coach. I mean, yeah, it's early on in the game, and it was that drive that the punt ended up being blocked, I think. So, yeah, it was end game, but you got to love the attitude of that. Ben Mason's a guy that's, I remember a couple years ago, if you guys remember the video when I interviewed Ben Mason, and I forgot exactly what led to the question. He said he's never been scared of anything his entire life, and he kind of just looked at me with this look, and I'm like, I believe you, 100%, Ben. I believe you. And at the time, he had the mohawk, so I was like, yeah, Ben, I 100% believe you that. You've never been scared of anything. Yeah, follow Eric on Twitter at Erick Rudder WD. Erick Rudder says, I don't know why the only Erick Rudder part was highlighted. It's Erick Rudder WD. Brian R says, Blake Quorum is about to be the real deal. Impressive for a true freshman. I mean, hey, that's a nice way to open up your career, isn't it? That little dump play, and he's fast. He is fast. I don't know if he's Jackson fast. Because Jackson can fly, Giles Jackson, and I think Giles Jackson's one of the fastest guys Michigan's had since Dennis Norfleet. So Quorum might be in that category too. Quorum's kind of built like Dennis. Michigan fan says that block from Mason during the first drive really set the tone, even though we got a 15-yard penalty. Absolutely, Michigan fan, I agree with you. MSU will take years to get back. Yes, I 100% agree with you on that, pulled pin. It's going to be a rebuilding process for sure. I mean, Michigan State just looked absolutely horrible against Rutgers. It was, I've never, and it's not anything personal against Mel Tucker. I don't know the guy. I've never, 99, after the 2000 season, because they won the Citrus Bowl but for 7 years, they weren't anything. And then Mark D'Antonio comes in the around the corner for the Spartans. But at the same time, too, Michigan State enjoyed, almost a decade of success that, most programs died to have. So it's, if you're a Michigan State fan, you can't look back at it fondly and romantically and not acknowledge, really the collapse, the past 2-3 years that, we can get into that more if you guys want, but it's you're well aware of what happened. So, any word on Eubanks? He traveled. Erick All was asked about that. I don't know the specifics on this situation, but he did travel, and Erick All said, whatever's going on between Nick and the coaches is between them, and that he basically wasn't going to speak on it. So I don't know. I covered Michigan, and now I'm just freelance. It's not like Saturday Tradition's paying me to write about Michigan, so I said, yeah, why not? So thanks Chris Wright, thanks Dustin Shute for hooking me up, but yeah, it's not. I'm gonna still try to do a good job, but it's not like how I was in the past where I knew all kinds of stuff and was just totally immersed in this. But it is. I like covering Michigan. It's an interesting program, and I think anybody, if you're into if you want to even be a sports writer or get into sports media, cover a team. Don't cover anything as a fan. Cover something. I love baseball. I hate the Yankees, but if I got offered a beat writing job to cover the New York Yankees, I'd be stupid to not take it. It's the New York Yankees, right? So, kind of like along those lines. Michigan's a huge brand, and it was. I actually was offered the MSU when I first got started with Bleacher Report. I was actually offered the MSU job, and they said, "Okay, this is what it pays." I was like, "Well, what does the Michigan job pay?" The Michigan job paid quite a bit more, so I said, "I'm covering Michigan." Anybody have any questions? Anybody having any problem with the audio or the video? It's a little grainy for me on my laptop. Feel free to let me know. Daily Post is glad to see you back covering Michigan. I like your general analysis. I appreciate that. Cody Boyle says, early prediction, Mel Tucker after next season. Don't think they let him go after the COVID season. I could see that. Cody Boyle says, Harbaugh more relaxed this year. Doesn't seem like he feels I'll tell you this. I have never, and Jim Harbaugh will give you a very good answer. If you ask him a good question, he'll give you a good answer. And I've been on both sides of that. I've asked him some long, drawn-out shit. And, at the same time, I've asked him some questions that he really liked. I have never once seen him at the end of a press conference say, wait, I want to talk more. And today, as it was wrapping up, he did his 20-minute, we're going to end the Zoom call, and Harbaugh was like, wait, I want to say one more thing. And he just started talking about Michael Barrett and how defensive player and special teams player, he had that punt return for a touchdown that he was waiting for. That was kind of like a big moment for him. Because he'd gotten close a couple times. I remember that game. I was covering that. That was the 16 season opener, I believe. And I have never once seen. I've seen Harbaugh be in good moods and maybe crack smiles and stuff. But when it's over, it's over. Okay, coach, you're done. Boom, he's up and gone. Harbaugh stayed on legitimately for another 3 to 5 minutes. It felt like just talking about Michael Barrett. So Michael Barrett, real deal. If you're a Michigan fan, you got to be real excited about Michael Barrett. That kid's going to do some damage on special teams. He had that big hit on Morgan that led to Donovan Jeter scoop and score. That was a huge momentum changer of the game. I wrote my post-game column. It ran Sunday morning, and let me go ahead game season. This was Minnesota. It was on the road. This is a good team, and Michigan was able to come out all three phases. Big special team. Michael Barrett with a 66-yard kick return. We saw Zach Charbonnet's 70-yard touchdown. We saw Hassan Haskins with a 66-yard touchdown run. Just big plays, I think, are going to be a big part of Michigan's. You got to be able to have those. Aaron Little that guy that could get the playmakers the ball. Hopefully Milton is that guy. Milton looked good. He did. Bold Pin says, talk about how bad MSU recruiting is going. Why? Why do I want to do that? Now you guys know, you're like, figures. Tell us how you really feel about the Spartans. It sucks, okay? It's gonna be rough. They're making me drink during the day, and it's not even football day. My advice is, if you're a Michigan State Spartan fan, get used to disappointment and get used to drinking a lot. I think that's probably going to be your only cause of enjoyment. I don't think the Spartans are going to be very good. I did think that they were going to lose to Rutgers. Sadly, I was almost half-heartedly joking. I'm like, they're going to watch them screw around and lose to Rutgers. And I didn't actually turn it on because I forgot it was on. I was doing some housework. I turned on. I'm like, 28-13. Are you kidding me? And then just Speedy Naylor stopped the punt. I mean, it was just one thing after another, and it got to where it was comical to watch. And I'm just on Twitter whining. I'm like, wake me up when the Mel Tucker era is over. I can't take this. I'm on the ledge. It's gonna be that kind of year for the Spartans. Joe Provost says, the impressive thing for me is they made mistakes and still throttled them. Lots to clean up and build off from Saturday, and that's encouraging. Yeah, again, I mean, it wasn't a perfect game. And ordinarily, let's say, if this were last year, does Michigan recover from a block punt on the first drive of the game? I mean, does Michigan be able to throw a counter punch? And that's what they did in this game, because it was close. And then Michigan found a way to open it up, and that's the counterpunch power. That's the big playability, and I think that's a sign for any football team. It's a good sign if you're able to do that. And again, it was balanced game. You look at the numbers, balanced in terms of production, rushing, and passing. But if you do have that threat where you're like, okay, watch out, Zach Charbonnet might bust off a 70-yard touchdown run. That's a good thing to have. And that's one thing I think that we haven't really seen in Michigan's offense under Jim Harbaugh, is that just wow factor, right? There was a defense always had the wow factor. I still maintain that Wilton Speight was Michigan's best quarterback under Jim Harbaugh. That was a really good offense with Jed Fish there. Very exciting to watch. But again, that was, J.U. Chesson, Mara Darbo making big catches, that sort of thing. Devion Smith had a really nice year too, but there was nothing that really just kind of jumped out at me as a wow factor. And they tried to put a wow factor in by moving Jabril onto offense, and that wasn't the wow factor that a lot of people thought. Michigan has wow factor with the offense, and not just Charbonnet, with Haskins, with Chris Evans. I mean, look at that backfield. Blake Quorum is going to have a big year. Blake Quorum's going to bust off, that little dump in the flat. Blake Quorum's going to pick up 40, 50, 60 yards on that play one day. Mark, I believe that. And I mean, yeah, they're good wide receivers, but I mean, I think Michigan's wow power is going to come from the backfield, offensively speaking. And then, of course, Joe Milton's arm. But the wow power, I think, is most certainly the backfield, speaking of offense. Is anybody, because the video on my laptop isn't keeping up with the video on my phone. So is anybody having any problems with the video? Because if so, then I know that I'm not going to do them down in the basement anymore. I just can't go upstairs right now because my friend is having her Zoom call, and my friend and I are watching our mutual friend's house, and so she's upstairs having her Zoom call for work. And then there's also my two labs. There's also an English Bulldog, and there's also her Chihuahua. So it's a madhouse over here. Michigan fans said we had more big plays in that game than we've had in almost 6 games last year. I agree. Cody Boyle says Michigan's skill position speed looks similar to Ohio State through one game. Is that the biggest gap between the two I think skill and speed at the skill positions, I think, has always been the difference. I think comparable talent on offensive and defensive lines. But I mean, at the running back position, at the wide receiver position, I think Ohio State has always had that. Takes a step at closing that gap. Anyone with questions? Video, okay. Go to Twitter, see if on Twitter, the Auger, Chris Auger says, I think it's Auger Doll or something like that. It's been a while, Chris. He says on Twitter, it's not just another game. You wonder why Michigan struggled for that mini decade against them. And this is in response to Vincent Gray was asked this question about what do you, it was from a TV reporter, just a TV soundbite question. What comes to mind when you see the Michigan State green and white? And Vincent Gray, he transferred in, right? So, I don't expect Vincent Gray to be a guy who's going to get up and, all crazy about it. He said, nothing really. And he added, it's just another game. It was very a nonchalant, casual response. But I think he wasn't trying to feed the, they know they're going to get these kind of questions every week, and they want someone to say something, and they want someone to guarantee, someone to go out on a limb. They want to hype up this rivalry as much as they possibly can. So that's what TV people do. So I don't think Vincent Gray was coming off like he didn't give a shit about it. I think he was just talking in a general sense, like he's not going to hype it up. So any questions on Twitter? You guys, if you follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81, be sure to read my stuff at Saturday Tradition. It says it buffers a little bit, but not too bad. Okay, it's just my laptop then. Cody says, Joe Milton, 300-plus yard game versus State, 0 to 10 likelihood. I'm going to say it's going to be about a 3 likelihood because I think Michigan's just going to run the ball down Michigan State's throat. And I say that because look what Rutgers did to Michigan State. Pacheco, that guy had let me bring up that box score. Pacheco for Rutgers had a nice game. Rutgers' defensive line was looking like Alabama 2009. I was like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, Pacheco, 19 carries for 61 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. And one could argue, too, okay, Michigan State, okay, you don't commit 7 turnovers, you probably lose that game, 38-27, right? They're like, 9 point. This game was a lot worse than 38-27 suggests. Michigan State got that touchdown in the third quarter didn't matter. Touchdown in the fourth quarter didn't matter. Mel Tucker decides to go for it on 4th and 2 rather than kick the field goal. That sealed the game. Rutgers goes up, I think it was 31-20 after a field goal. Anything Michigan State did after that wasn't going to matter. The quarterback, Vedro, I think he was a transfer from Nebraska. 18-29 for 169 yards, a touchdown, and interception. So not big, huge stats that just jump off the page. I do think that Isaiah Pacheco had a good game, even though it was only 69 yards, but he scored 2 touchdowns. And not to discredit him, but Isaiah Pacheco is not Zach Charbonnet. He's not Hassan Haskins. He's not Chris Evans. So, Cody, to answer your question, I think a Milton 300-yard passing game is pretty unlikely. I think what would probably be more likely is we might see, 2 Michigan running backs hit 100, or lead rusher maybe, 120 yards. Let's say Charbonnet, and then Haskins comes in and adds 90, something like that. I think Michigan's going to run the ball down Michigan State's throat. Jeremy Turner says, how's it going, Biggs? What did you think of Michigan Saturday? They looked good, man. They looked really good. Season opener. on the road, we put up, all these other circumstances, long layoff, blah blah blah. They look good. I was impressed. The big plays, I think, are going to be a calling card for the Wolverines. I don't know if you missed that. We talked a little bit about it before, but here's my column from Sunday morning. You can't deny Michigan's home run power. It's there. I never like to get all, one way or the other based on one game, but I don't think this was just one game. It was against a good team. This isn't opening up the season with a 63-3 win against Hawaii. This is going to Minnesota and pretty much for the most part owning the tempo the entire game. Aaron Little says Don Brown's just got to adjust for Ohio or it doesn't matter. Can't deal with crossing routes for 4 quarters again. I agree. I thought Vincent Gray did a decent job on Rashad Bateman. What did Bateman end up with? Let me see. He had 9 catches for 101 yards, but no touchdowns. So I guess that's kind of why I felt that way. 9 catches for 109 yards or 101 yards is a really good game, but he didn't score. No drops either. I look at it as a success with Bateman did Bateman burn you? Muhammad Ibrahim, Minnesota's running back, 26 carries for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, it wasn't a perfect game. You can poke holes in this if you want to, but I thought that given the circumstances, that Michigan did a really good job, and I thought that they were able to control the trenches. That's the key, not only in football but Big Ten football, especially when you get into these teams that want to just run the ball a lot. And if I had to grade Michigan on a letter grade scale, I'd give them a solid B plus. And don't forget, Minnesota was an 11-win team last year. Minnesota, this isn't the Minnesota Golden Gophers that I grew up watching, that just sucked. This is a good Minnesota team. Cody Boyle says, true or false, the Big Ten East will be decided on the last week of the season, and between who? Well, I think next week's Ohio State, Penn State, right? So, Penn State loses next week. They're done, I think. So, is it gonna? I'm going to lean toward true. I'll lean toward true. Michigan, Ohio State. James H. says, did you notice the poise in the pocket and control of the offense by Milton when Shea was behind center? I'm not big on this, because I feel like a lot of people now just want to go shit on Shea and say, see, we told you. It's different circumstances. I think that Shea Patterson was a good quarterback. Things just never really came to fruition for him. Poise in the pocket. We could argue, Joe was behind a much less experienced offensive line, right? If we want to go that route, Shea was behind guys like Bredesen, Mayfield last year. So, I don't know. Ben Braden, those guys, for 2 years. So, I just think it's unfair to compare. I think just look at it for what it is now moving forward. Does Joe Milton? Yeah, Joe Milton looked more comfortable than Shea Patterson. Yes, I'll agree with that. But I don't want it to go to the point where it's like it becomes shit on Shea show, when I don't think that there are other things involved in that a lot of people don't realize. Aaron Little says, aside from Ohio, where does a Michigan loss come? I think we have a shot. Yeah, I think Michigan does have a shot being undefeated going into the Ohio State game. I'll bring up Michigan's schedule right now. Because what I thought, now I'll say this, I predicted coming into this week, just based on what I was hearing and seeing and everything, that Michigan would beat Wisconsin. I mean, that would go to Minnesota and win. But at the same time, when the schedule got released, I was looking at that season opener and I said, well, that only because going on the road, play a good team, flashback at Notre Dame or something like that. They went on the road and went. I believe Utah was a top 25 ranked team when they went out and played Utah, the season opener in 2015. Harbaugh's first game, I was there for that. So I was just kind of basing it on history a little bit. It's like, okay, yeah, the Minnesota game is a game that they could in theory lose, but now you get past week one, you see how that they played against Minnesota. Michigan State at now I don't know, now at that at Indiana game too, that Michigan does not have an easy schedule. At Minnesota, then versus Michigan State. Indiana's been on the up for the past 3 years. Then it's at home versus Wisconsin. So then at Rutgers, at Penn State. I gotta believe that at Indiana or at home against Penn State, I think those would be the two games that I'd be most concerned about, other than Ohio State, and that's at Ohio State. Cody Boyle, over under Ronnie Bell 900 yards for the season. I'll say under. I think we might see him more in the 750, 825 range. Hunt Daily Post says, I was really impressed with Milton's timing and being decisive with his running. His size adds a real element to short yardage runs as well. I agree. Aaron Little says, Indy scares me more than Wisconsin or Penn State. Yeah, I mean, and it's because Indiana's one of those teams that knows it's on the cusp. It is hungry. Indiana reminds me of when Michigan State was coming up under D'Antonio. This is a team you don't want to play because they're desperate. Not desperate in a bad sense, but they're we're this close to being a team that's going to command some respect and be considered a contender in the Big Ten, no longer a doormat. I mean, for years, Indiana, you see the Indiana game, okay, well, that's a win, regardless of who it is, right? So, I mean, Michigan State learned that the hard way. Indiana's not a team I think that anybody wants to overlook. So, yeah, in terms of sneaky dangerous, yeah, Indiana I think would probably worry me more than Wisconsin or Penn State as well. Any case, Shea did a good job. I think Milton has a much higher ceiling. I'm excited. Cody Boyle says, can Wisconsin stay afloat without Mertz? Yeah, he just tested positive for COVID. So, I mean, I don't know what their protocol is going to be. If they're going to make him quarantine for 14 days or whatever it is, or do, rapid testing for 5 days. I'd have to read up more on that. But I imagine they're going to try to get him cleared as soon as possible. Jason Hughes says, has anybody heard if Mertz from Wisconsin was tested positive again? Last I knew, I think he tested positive after the game, or was it Sunday morning? So either immediately Saturday or again Sunday morning. Which makes me wonder, and I don't want to go off on this COVID tangent, but if everybody tested negative on both sides, right, that are participating, so I mean, he didn't get from anybody on the field, right? Everybody that's around you supposedly or ideally has tested negative for COVID that day, right? I think they're doing daily testing. So that's somewhere along the line how did he end up, getting it? And was it a false positive? Because we saw with the NFL testing, right? There were 47 guys who initially tested positive for COVID, and then the following day test negative. So any other questions, guys? We're going on 48 minutes here. I do think I might hop on later. I don't know. There's more player availability. Tuesday, Wednesday, Ben McDaniels will be on Zoom, the assistant head coach. So I might do one like later this week. And then again, I was talking to Erick from Wolverine Digest. I've known Erick for a long time. He's really done a great job coming up. And we might do an audio podcast, or I don't know if I could do a split screen video on YouTube. I don't know. We'll have to figure out something, but we might do something along those lines. So does anybody have any questions? Any final parting shots? Anybody want to ask me more painful Michigan State questions? I know you guys like that part, don't you? I'm not going to lie. 2016, covering that game inside of me was one of the greatest fan moments that you could ever have. I gotta be truthful. I kept a straight face. I showed no emotion because it's on. You don't go there to cheer, be a cheerleader. You don't go there to be a troll. But, my inner child was like, holy shit, what just happened? So those days I think are over. It's back to, I remember the 90s when I was a kid, late 80s, early 90s, right after 88 Rose Bowl. Michigan State football kind of started going on a decline, and Michigan football, I want to say I was in about second or third grade, and I bet my neighbor's dad, my neighbor Kevin, his dad, Big Kevin, I think I bet him like $5 or something on Michigan State, and Michigan killed Michigan State. And I go over there sobbing with my $5 bill, like, here, Big Kevin, I'm sorry, or here's the money. He felt so bad for me, he didn't make me pay. So those days are going to be the norm, I think, for Michigan State. Young Michigan State, just like, and to flip it, some of these guys that are coming in now, Michigan recruits, Michigan wasn't an elite team when they were coming up. You know what I mean? So that kind of changes perception a lot. So, I think, and it's the D'Antonio era, I think, is going to be easily forgotten when they see, okay, well, that's the exception. That's a golden era of Michigan State football. What's regular Michigan State football? Regular Michigan State football is going to be this Mel Tucker era that hopefully ends soon. And I think it's going to be at least 2 more coaches before Michigan State gets up on the uptick. The Tucker signed they signed to a 6-year deal. I think it was a 5 or 6 year deal. It's like one of the highest paid coaches in college football. I don't know. I don't like to overreact over one game, but you don't lose at home to Rutgers. I don't give a shit who you are. You just don't. 4 or 5 games. I think that might be individual basis. If okay, we just got to get in, like if it's an agent, telling a kid, hey, we just got to get you enough tape, And if that's some of these guys' intent, that's kind of a shame, because I think this Michigan team has the potential to be really good this season. So fun to watch. It'll be fun to watch. Jason Hughes says, heard he could be out 21 days if he tests positive again, but what a debut. And he's talking about Mertz, quarterback from Wisconsin. Tim Beck says, what's up? I hope I didn't miss too much. Oh, not too much, Tim. I was actually just getting ready to shut it down. This is almost just over 51 minutes now. So I was planning on going on at 7, and then I was like, let's just do it earlier. But feel free to watch the replay. We covered a whole bunch of stuff. If you have a final question, I don't mind answering that. But Cody Boyle says, Penn State overhyped. They don't have the best running back. Ford missing best linebacker in Big Time Parsons, and head coach has worst record in big games than Harbaugh. But Sean Clifford, man. I like Sean Clifford. The quarterback. But yeah, no, it's not Trace McSorley and Saquon, right? All right, guys. Well, if there aren't any more questions, Andy K says, Adam, you should do a big preview show every Friday. Yeah, I want to get on some kind of schedule so that way, the people that do watch will get a chance to watch it live. And I appreciate a lot of you guys have been watching these for a long time and reading my stuff for a long time. And so I do appreciate that. I remember we used to be kind of on a regular schedule. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I would do something Saturday pregame and then something, Sunday morning or Saturday postgame and then something Sunday morning. I'm not going to do it as much as I used to because, again, I'm just freelancing and, that's about it. But I want to do a good job. I want to have fun. So if you guys feel free, let me know what times work for you, what days work for you, and I can see if I could work around that so that way we get the most people who want to watch it live and join the conversation. Those are first. TSYU7. I always didn't know if I say all the letters or is it Sue7 to Sue. Got to help me out. I know it's early, but the offense actually looks like it can be competitive against Ohio State. What say you? It's early, but firepower. We've been talking about this whole stream. I don't think I've seen a Michigan offense under Jim Harbaugh that seems to have this much wow factor, this much firepower. Run game. I'm super reluctant on anything head-to-head comparison with Michigan and and Ohio State. We're week 2 right now, but if we just base on what we saw against Minnesota, does Michigan look like it at least? Because if you want to hang with a team like Ohio State, right, you got to be able to deliver the big plays. If Michigan can continue what it did against Minnesota, I do think big plays can be a calling card for this team. And again, I wrote a column on that. I'll drop that link in here. My column will run tomorrow on SaturdayTradition.com. Is going to cover how Michigan needs to own the trenches against Michigan State. So highlight the offensive and defensive lines. SYU7, there you go. SYU7. I appreciate that. I know a lot of your guys' names in here are probably butchered at one point. MIC Book says, what's up, Adam? What do you think about Charbonnet only getting 4 carries against Minnesota? After you get a 70-yard touchdown, Michigan seems to have kind of control of the game. Haskins, 6 times for 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. Charbonnet, 4 carries for 70, 1 touchdown. Blake Quorum had 5 carries for 24 yards. Chris Evans had 5 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. I got to bring this up. It's totally off topic, and now I'm going to spend my ADD is going to make me spend 5 minutes talking on this. Kieft. Now, is that not a hell of a football name or not? The Minnesota fullback, Kieft. K-O Kieft. K-I-E-F-T. That's a fucking name right there. What happened with Nick Eubanks? I don't know the specifics. He traveled with the team. Erick all confirmed that. He was at Erick. I didn't ask the question during the Zoom, but Erick all was asked about, how he felt knowing that he was going to start. When did he find out? That kind of thing. And he kind of alluded to the fact that, that if there's an issue between Nick Eubanks and the coaching staff, and again, I don't know this and I don't want to spread rumors, but I'm going off what Erick all said. He didn't appear very comfortable about discussing Eubanks happening. That's as far as I know. That's all I know. Jason Hughes says, okay, this will be the final question. Adam, do you think the Michigan-Minnesota game would have been a lot closer had Minnesota had their kickers? I mean, you could probably argue that, but at the same time, I mean, you're not gonna beat a team that's got home run power and defense scoring a touchdown and 70-yard rushing touchdown, a 66-yard run, 66-yard kickoff return from Mike Barrett. You're not gonna beat a team with field goals. So would it have made a little bit of a difference? I imagine so, but I don't think it probably would have changed much. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Again, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. You can read my Michigan football content at SaturdayTradition.com. Follow them on Twitter at Tradition. And if you have any questions, suggestions, you guys just tweet me. We'll figure out something. Maybe we'll do a Friday Big Ten preview show. and we'll figure something out. But again, it's fun to just get back on and talk some football with you guys. I appreciate everyone watching. I think I'm gonna go have an early dinner and probably drink some beer. Play with the dogs. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, Michigan fans, IU7. And again, I'd like to thank Erick Rudder for coming on and joining the chat. Andy Case, thank you. Jason Hughes. Thanks, Adam. I miss this. I miss it too, man. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I appreciate you guys watching. And again, follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good day.